Hello, and welcome if you're new here. My name's Angela. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm from New Jersey. I am a Jersey girl. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and I moved to the suburbs, and moving to the suburbs killed my creative drive. Now, that might seem like a lot to unpack there, and there is a lot to unpack there. But I definitely do see how moving my environment definitely changed my way in looking at art, my concept of art, and how I produce art. I'm an artist. Just a little bit of background about me. I went to art school. I went to college, did journalism, been in the arts my entire life, did dance, drama, art, vocal, video production, photography, everything and anything underneath the sky. I've done it. And it's always been a really big part of me. My parents were very creative. They definitely always embraced my creativity, especially my dad and my mom. They were artists themselves. My dad was very big in art. My mom used to buy me all those art supplies that you would buy for your kids if you know that art kit. And it was always something very big and part of my life. And I always wanted to pursue something in the arts, which is why I went to college and pursued a bachelor's in journalism to become a journalist. Plot twist, I'm not a journalist. But there's something profound about the environment I was raised in and the city I grew up in, and then me conceptualizing that as an adult now and seeing how my environment really affected me as an artist and as someone who loves to be a part of the arts and wants to contribute to the arts. I moved to the suburbs when I want to say 22. I was 22 years old when I moved to the suburbs. I moved from Newark to the suburbs, to the town where my boyfriend lives. And I did it more or less as a rebellion towards my family. I grew up with a very involved family members. I grew up in a traditional black family household, and if you're black, moving out of the house with your boyfriend at a young age is the end of the world to them. And it was the end of the world to my family when I told them that I was moving out with my boyfriend. And they were very much against it. They did not support it at all for the most part. I think the only supportive person was my dad and my mom at the time, because their excuse was, you're an adult, you're going to make your own decisions, be an adult. Which, thank you parents, if you're watching this, thank you for saying that, because don't move out in your 20s with your boyfriend. But it really helped me gain a sense of independence at a young age, outside of my family's control, which I think every 20-something-year-old needs to go through at some point. And I think that is kind of what impacted my journey. Like I said in the beginning, I grew up in Newark, which is known to be almost like an artist hub. There's a lot of artists that come out of Newark. Newark is known for the arts. It's a big filming production area nowadays, which is so crazy to me. And although you hear North Jersey, you think the hood, but you don't think of the arts. You don't think of galleries and these big performing artists coming out of Newark, New Jersey, of all places, which there was a lot. Let's put that on the record. There was a lot of artists that came out of Newark, aka Michael B. Jordan. Thank you so much for putting Newark on the map. There's so many big artists and actors, dancers that come out of Newark, and some respect needs to be put on Newark's name for the artists that they develop and create. I personally went to art school. I actually went to the nation's first performing arts high school, which is Arts High. And I feel like that really gave me a full circle moment as an artist. Just because when you're going to a performing arts high school, it's not your traditional school at all. There was no football team. Sports was not a big thing. We didn't have pep rallies. We literally had you go into your friend's dance performance that they had every 2 seasons, or going to your friend's film production showing. That was our version of a pep rally. And it's such a weird experience. It's such a niche experience. Unless you've gone to art school, you wouldn't understand or conceptualize like the differences between like art school and traditional like high school. But I'm so grateful for it now, looking back, because I was always surrounded by people involved in the arts and people who are always creatives. I did film in high school. I was film production. I originally wanted to do drama, and I remember I didn't understand the script at all, which is why I didn't audition for drama. But if I did, I probably would have stick with drama. And I also did dance, and I was going to be a dancer if I didn't quit dancing either. So there's that. But there's something about going to art school where everybody's kind of always in a creative space, and you always have these different influences from everybody. I had friends who were like vocal students, and they would be singing in the hall room like at 8 in the morning. I had friends who were dancers, and you see them running around in their leotards going to dance class. You know, I'd be in the studio with my classmates putting together a music video or putting together a mini movie series that we did, and filming broadcast television skits in our classroom. And it was always just something new artistically every single day. It was always something else going on, which really helped influence me as an artist and me becoming an articulated artist and a conscious artist as well. Like, I'm so appreciative of all the arts because of the fact that I went to art school and that I was surrounded around it 24/7. And I'm like, there's nothing, it's like, it's an experience you just can't forget. And I think especially going into college and knowing that like, hey, like I want to pursue the arts in college, I knew that something in the arts was something I wanted to do. And film was not something I wanted to do at all. I actually hated film. I love the production aspect of it, but like storyboarding and like, so much goes into film that people don't realize. And it was like, this is just too much for me. I felt very overwhelmed with film, and I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I can't go to film school. But journalism always really spoke to me, almost poetically, because there's so many different things you can do with journalism. There's film, there's sports, there's art, there's news. There's so many things you can do with journalism, and I love the aspect of being able to tell other people's stories without having to make my own. Like, I could be a storyteller of somebody else and tell their stories and tell their stories in a very profound way, and not just it being like me sitting in front of a camera. Like, there's journalism, photography, there's documentary journalism. Like, there's so many different outlets, and I feel like it kind of scratched all the itches I was looking for creatively, which is why, yeah, journalism, like that's what I'm going to school for. And I loved my time in journalism, especially in college. Like, it was so many great professors, there were so much great things, and I really gained a lot from it. I also did an internship. I did my first ever podcast from me going to school in college and doing journalism, and I'm so grateful for that, because I would never to this day say I would ever have did a podcast if it wasn't for me going to school. Midway through college, I moved to the suburbs very abruptly. My great-grandfather had passed away, and my landlord decided not to renew our lease. Thank you for not doing that. And I had to make a difficult decision of who I was going to live with, because I did not live with my parents growing up. I grew up with my great-grandfather, and his passing kind of disrupted my life for a little bit. And I was kind of in this weird area of like, okay, where do I want to live? Do I want to stay in Newark the rest of my life? Do I want to branch out and move somewhere else? And I was like, I had a very strained relationship with my family at the time, my extended family. And I knew deep down I could not live with them. I knew deep down that it was for my own sanity and well-being and my own mental health, dealing with everything that I had going on. I could not live with my family. So I made a very difficult decision to move with my boyfriend to where he lives in the suburbs, 20 minutes from Newark. And I feel that ruined me as an artist. I feel that me moving to the suburbs was possibly the worst idea I ever did, as someone who grew up in the city and grew up not in the suburbs at all. You could not catch me in the suburbs, to be quite frank, before this. And I think that really affected my journey as an artist. I think that going from a city where the arts is very appreciated and you can find it in every little corner and every little thing that people do. Like, there's so many like artist events in Newark. I was close to all the art galleries. Like, there was something for me to do artistically, and Newark provided that space for the artists to perform artistically. To then do a complete 180 and move to the suburbs where there's none of this. I can't name a single gallery. I can't name a single art event. I could not tell you any artist is from the town that I'm from. It's almost like the universe just pops you like randomly in the middle of the Midwest and says, here you go. And there's nothing. It's an artist desert. And it affected me. It generally affected me as an artist and as a creator, because I went from doing these paintings and making videos for fun and doing photography for my friends for fun and having friends who are dancers and going out to like dance events with them and doing X, Y, and Z to working and just working and working some more and maybe finishing school and then working some more. My life became less about art and more about survival. And I think that was also the fact of me rushing moving out and trying to be on my own, where you're so caught up in survival mode where you just can't create like you want to. You're so caught up about bills, like how am I going to eat tonight? What shifts am I having to pick up to pay rent? Is the electric bill going to be on tonight? Like those things, especially coming from like an inner city kid who grew up with nothing or very little, like without any handouts, I think I kind of was put in survival mode where art was no longer the center of my life anymore. Art was the last thing on my mind. And I tried so hard to create things. I started a business trying to fill that empty hole that I had, the void that I had from no longer committing myself to art as much as I did my entire life, which I still have to this day. Like I still run my business, but it becomes like a commodification at that point where it's like, okay, like, am I doing this because I artistically want to do this, or am I doing this because it needs to pay the bills? And I think even with my journey in photography, I love photography. I adore photography, and I did photography for a little bit, and I used it for business. I used it as a way to make money. Did I enjoy doing it? Yeah, but like, enjoyment was not the first thing on my mind. The paying the bills was the first thing on my mind. And even there'd be times where I'd be trying to create another podcast or paint or do anything artistically wise, YouTube, TikTok, like do little TikTok skits and stuff like that. And it just wasn't providing me the same substance that I had always felt artistically. It just kind of felt as a distant way to connect and as a way to pay the bills. And as of recently, I've been trying to connect with the arts more. And I'm noticing now, as a more like self-aware person, I'm connecting with the arts within the cities that I visit, not in the suburbs. I go to New York a lot. My tattoo artist who does all my tattoos, he has art events that I haven't gone to yet, but I keep trying to go to. And I love going to the city because there's always people doing something creatively, whether it's fashion, photography, modeling, anything with the arts. There's so many art galleries in New York. It's like such an artist hub. And the same thing with, like, I always find myself going back to Newark or areas around Newark where there's artists where there's galleries, where there's music events, where there's a creators market I just went to on Sunday. Like, there's so much more creativity in the city as opposed to the suburbs. because the suburbs, there's nothing there. At least the suburbs like I've been around and the ones that I live in now, there's no creative outlet or as big of a creative outlet as you would find in a city. You know, like I don't know artistically what's going on. Like people in the suburbs, like they've done what they've done for their lives. You know, they're settling down, they're having kids, they're working their blue collar job. You know, they're just trying to maintain life. And when you're just, you know, okay with the life that you have, like you don't really see the artistic side of it. And I used to give people who wear like implants that come to New York a lot of time, I give them a lot of shit. I truthfully give them a lot of shit. I'd be like, you're an implant, like you're trying to live the New York life. But I see why. As someone who lives in the suburbs now, I see why people choose to be an implant. And why people move to cities like Los Angeles, Texas, Dallas, New York, Charlotte, all these big artist hubs. I see why people move there because there's no substance where people live. You'll have people move to the Midwest or literally middle of nowhere to move to these big cities to like find their big break or like become a content creator because there's spaces for them there. There's a lot of space created for you in those big cities where artists thrive, and there's a sense of community that you don't find in the suburbs or rural areas. And I think as an artist, your environment plays a huge part in who you are as an artist in your creative process. Because when there's no other creatives or people who are trying to create art like you are, you kind of become like one of 10 in your area creating art. And you almost feel like an outlier because it's like, okay, like, who am I doing this for if you're looking for that? Or is what I'm doing purposeful to myself? Like, what is this just because I want to do it, or is it because I'm genuinely an artist? And it's, you know, other things become priorities, and you don't realize it until you stop painting as often, you don't stream as often, you don't podcast as often, you don't film as often. When those things start to diminish, like you don't notice until you look back and you're like, hey, like I used to do these things, and why am I not doing those things anymore? It's so strange, and it's so crazy how your environment can play such a crazy part in your creative process and who you are as an artist. And I think that your environment creates you as an artist, just as you create your environment as an artist. And I think that your environment can kill any drive, any passion that you may have. And I think choosing to go where you feel you belong as an artist is so important and so meaningful, because that's who you are deep down. That's who you are. You're an artist, and you want to be in spaces where you feel welcomed and where you know that it's going to be appreciated. And I think that places like the suburbs and the rural areas are just not that. And I see why people move to all these places. I think it's important to go where you belong and feel where you belong. And hopefully, like, this resonates with someone who might be living in the suburbs somewhere and feel like your passion is not as strong as it used to be, or it's not there anymore. That passion can be rebuilt. It can be rebuilt, and you don't have to rely on a city for it to be built like that. But it's surrounding yourself with other people, other ambitious people, other artists, people who are creatives, digitally, physically, you know, creating your own space where you can be artists like everybody else, and you can co-create with other artists and share your ideas. And I think that's so important, especially in a generation now where everything's digital. You can create spaces with people in different countries. It's so crazy. It's literally so crazy. But hopefully this resonates with somebody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.